Good evening and thanks again for joining us for this edition of Ideas Exchange. This is TVXYZ. We'll bring this to you on Wednesdays from 8 to 9 p.m. Tonight, our conversation will be a bit more political because we'll be going into the Asen North constituency. I believe that you have followed this particular controversy. It is not the only seat that is being contested. The fact is, after the 2020 elections, we are aware that as many as 16 of them have been on the table or in the courts and are being fought either by the NDC or the MPP because they believe either the election was stolen, or in the case of Asen North and Jomoro, the candidates are being challenged because some Ghanaians believe at the time they were contesting the elections, they either had not denounced their dual citizenship or were not eligible to contest as candidates for their political parties. Tonight, we want to see the reaction of the largest opposition party because as we speak, the Supreme Court has finally stopped James Jechi Kwesen from carrying himself as the Member of Parliament to represent the people of Asen North. This does not mean that the Electoral Commission will go ahead to declare that seat vacant, because the substantive case itself is still pending, but nobody knows how long it will take for the court to adjudicate on this case. There have been instances where cases of this nature, where people are contesting parliamentary election results, have dragged until the end of that parliament. For this 8th parliament, anything can happen, because there has been a case before where the Supreme Court was accused of dragging its feet on handling the case involving Domlivo, and it kept sitting at the forecourt of the courts until government took its decision by dismissing Domlivo, and later that case was heard. As we speak, nobody knows how this case will move on, but we know that the Attorney General has publicly granted interviews suggesting that it is now time for tit for tat, and that government may consider going to court to apply for criminal charges against James Jechi Kwesen. So how is the NDC conditioning itself for the consequential effects from either today's ruling, what will happen to the substantive case, and if we have to go for a by-election? So tonight we'll be speaking to the NDC lawyers, and in the studio with me will be one key, influential, outspoken member of the NDC. He's a former Minister of State, and of course, we all know her as the National Women's Organizer of the NDC. She is Dr. Louisa Hannah Bisiw. She will be with me in the studio to speak from the perspective of the NDC on this interesting development. Don't forget, I mentioned the fact that there are about 16 constituencies that are being contested. As of January 2021, we knew that 8 of these seats were being contested by MPP, and then 8 of them were being contested by the NDC. I'll share some of these constituencies on the screen. And if you look at what I'm sharing on the screen, you would realize that the NDC is contesting 8 of them, and we are looking at Buem. The MPP is contesting 8 NDC seats: Buem, Kintampo North, Savoligu, Pusiga, Jomoro, Asen North, Banda, and Krachi West. The MPP seats challenged include Techiman South, Hohoi, Tano South, Takwa Insuayim, Esikado Keten, Tema West, Zabzugu, and Seshi Wioso. 12 of these petitions are on alleged electoral malpractices. I believe all of us watched proceedings after the 2020 elections, and we know that 2 of them, that is Kintampo North and Asen North. And we are talking about two of them, that is Jomoro and Asen North, relate to the eligibility of the candidates based on alleged dual citizenship or delayed denunciation. And then Hohoi and Buem have to do with the gymnastics by the Electoral Commission, where the people of Seoul, Santro Kofi, Akpafu, Likpe, and Lolobi were denied the opportunity to decide who should become their parliamentary candidates, because there was confusion about whether they were supposed to vote in the Hohoi constituency. But the EC has since said it was going to create what we will call the the Seoul constituency, where they will vote. But till date, we don't know the update on that. We will hear some of the lawyers, and then we'll speak to our guest. But let me first welcome her. Doc, you are welcome.
Yep, thank you.
Always looking very smart and pretty.
Thank you.
How has been the night, especially because after yesterday's rain, many people anticipated that there was going to be traffic along the way. I don't know whether you experienced that tonight.
Yes, I did. First of all, I want to say good evening to your viewers. Yes, naturally I did. And I called the Nana Pachi president. I mean, I think he's patching roads. The president of this government, they don't know how to start something from scratch. So the Pachi, and it already that causes traffic, and a lot of these Pachis are being washed away by the rain.
Okay, I like the way you are starting with the Pachi. We are
so the traffic naturally with the rains, yeah, there's some traffic, but
you managed to be here.
By God's grace, I do have.
Yes, I'm happy
driver,
you have
so
also been here in time, because if I look at the time we had a conversation and how fast
I had to actually put everything on hold.
How has your party or the constituents received this news about James Jechikwesin, who can no longer be representing his people as member of parliament? And this would mean technically your 137, which was your bargaining chip, has been reduced, and now you have 136, and so you cannot use parliament as a tool to hold government to account as many people anticipated. How did you receive the news? Well,
I think that, first of all, it's not also entirely true that we can't still keep government in check. We as side of parliament can still and will still keep this inept, irresponsible, reckless government in check, to continue to do so. And also, you know, we are actually contesting in court. I think we're talking to some of the lawyers, the first ruling. And so whilst waiting for the first ruling, this other ruling has come to say he can't, you know, hold himself again as a member of parliament. And just like Sal, you know, they are denying the people of Asen North the right to representation in parliament. So for us, it's not a breaking news, because in an era where it's so politically directed, where to the extent that the very Minister for National Security came out to caution the judges that the way judgment in this country is now one-sided in favor of the ruling government. If care is not taken, people take the law into their own hands. The only reason, I've always been saying this, that the only reason why there's always peace in a country or there's chaos in a country is when people actually lose trust in the judiciary system. Because if I know I can't get justice, I take the law into my own hands.
We will get into the details of issues related to the justice system, or what your anticipation is. But I would also want us to be listening to the three lawyers we have for now.
Okay.
But to the specific question again, have you spoken to your constituents in Asen North, and how have they received this story, and what is the mood there?
Definitely, it's not a happy mood for the constituents. One, they don't want to be without a member of parliament that they overwhelmingly voted for, and they love their MP. They want to have him. They support him, and they don't want to be without representation in the legislative arm of government. So definitely this is not some sort of a welcoming news for anybody. They thought that at least for once we're going to see some sort of justice, being said. And Ascent North has been a very interesting constituency for this government, and I think we go into the details because with the lens that I look at this situation, I don't think that I'll be far from right, what the intent, if not the intention of government is concerning Ascent North and the fight to reduce the numbers of the NDCs in Parliament. Remember that with the Speaker's election, there were only 2 vote difference, and all the saga of the Tema West MP Carlos Ahinkra, who actually stole papers and chewed them. And so it should tell you that they are gearing towards a certain point. That is what I feel.
Did you anticipate this coming? Because I remember last month, the date to be specific was, I think, March 22nd, when Gabi Asare Otredako gave a hint of what we know cannot happen because the substantive case has not been heard. But he wrote, April is looking good for a by-election. Did this give you a certain suspicion, and for which reason you may have conditioned your party folks so that this story imagined that the man can no longer represent them as a member of parliament will not come as a shock, and for which reason they will wait for the substantive case to be heard?
No, we are always prepared. We are always prepared for what we are contending in court, and even for those that we are not, because we are not in normal times. And so it's not going to take us by surprise as a political party. We are definitely, prepared any day, any time to go into a by-election. But if it must be done, it must be done well. That's what we're talking about. So it's not surprising to us as a political party, but yes, of course, we are prepared to move in, and we are not afraid of by-elections.
Now, for those who are watching us, our topic tonight is on the Ascent North controversy. We are all aware by now that the Supreme Court has given its ruling. The decision, which has been waiting for months, is about whether James Gyekye Quayson can carry himself as a member of parliament representing that constituency. Tonight, we know that he can no longer go to parliament as an MP for the people. But that, again, if you care to know, does not mean that the EC is going to hurriedly announce a date for a by-election that is creating a lot of confusion out there, because the case, the substantive case, is yet to be heard. I want us to quickly listen to snippets of what 3 legal practitioners, 2 for the MPP, 1 is the Attorney General, Frank Davies represents the plaintiff, and of course, Baba Jamal representing the NDC. So we will listen to Frank Davies first. When we hear him, we'll move on to Baba Jamal, and then we hear what the Attorney General has said. I'll come back to the studio to continue the conversation with Dr. Louisa Hannah Bisiw. She is the NDC's National Women's Organizer.
It's not a matter of me definitely expecting this. It's a matter of the Lord Justices of the Supreme Court having made a determination of the application which was before them. If you say that I knew this was coming, as if I'm a judge, I'm just a lawyer. I present my case before the court and the court rules. Indeed, I'm not a clairvoyant. Well, because of what we had put before the court, my expectation was that the constitution of the land will be upheld, and that the constitution of the land will be given its highest priority. And that is what has happened. One cannot involve in a egregious breaches of the constitution and still go around holding himself as a citizen of this country. From day one, when the judgment of the High Court was rendered, it was manifestly obvious that James Gyekye Quayson could not hold himself out as a member of parliament. He doggedly went on, was attending to the business of government. But today, that road has been effectively blocked. You can tread a path for too long, but it doesn't give you the right to do things which are irregular, unlawful, and an affront to the Constitution. The right of of representation is not a structure by itself. The right of representation is...
I don't think that it matters whether he was here or not. Let me say that the Supreme Court has given its ruling, but we vehemently disagree with their position. I think that it is a sad day for all of us, that if what it means is that Asenoff is also not going to have representation in Parliament for as long as this case lasts. That is a sad situation, because there are precedents in this country. We all remember the case in Ayawaso, West Wagon, where the lady was allowed to stay in Parliament until the final day of the determination of the case. So I thought that the Supreme Court will consider that situation and allow a representation. You see, this is a representation matter. If people have voted for a person, this is a representation matter. They deserve representation in Parliament. And so we thought that when the case is on, we could still have a representation in Parliament. But that is what the Supreme Court has said. The legal team will...
And so we have listened to the lawyer for the plaintiff, Frank Davis, who is an MPP legal practitioner who has, of course, been speaking on behalf of the party as far as legal matters are concerned. And Baba Jamal was also with NDC's legal team. Now, the interesting things are, one, how long it may take the Supreme Court to look at this particular case and subsequent ones. Two, what may have informed the EC's decision to allow, in this case, James J. Chikwesin to go through the 2020 elections, whether it was an oversight, and why EC at this stage may have been quiet, the consequential effect of this ruling and the subsequent ones, assuming we may have to go for a by-election, whether it is a gamble and whether we are even thinking about the cost to the state. Now, Hannah, Doc, if you look at all these and the presentations by the two lawyers, one side, it's an illegality. James J. Chikwesin cannot represent the people. Baba Jamal says we disagree with the lawyers and has raised the potential of the case being dragged, and he drafted in the case involving the Ayawaso central election petition case and so on. What is your position on these?
Yeah, my position is that I wonder why the plaintiff lawyer, the one who speaks for the ruling government, would say that, you know, it's against the Constitution and what have you. There are questions that we need to ask ourselves. It's a fact that the Honourable Member of Parliament actually filed, you know, to forgo his Canadian citizenship as far back as 2019. Okay, so a full clear year before elections. And it was granted him in November 2019, yeah. The law, the Article 94A, says that a person shall not be qualified to be a member of Parliament if he owes allegiance to a country other than Ghana, you know. So at what time does the Constitution, you know, apply? So at the time that he went into the election, he was no more a citizen of Canada. Okay. At the time that he took the oath, which is when he
was being sworn.
Yeah. When he was sworn in, he took the oath of allegiance and oath of office. At that time, he wasn't a member of any country, because you become a member of Parliament, remember, only after you take the oath. Any member of Parliament who was absent on that day, or let's talk about the future, if you are absent during the oath, you cannot hold yourself as a member of Parliament. So you actually will become a member of Parliament after the Speaker swears you in. So at that time, he was a full citizen of Ghana.
Yeah, but is it not going to be part of this substantive case that is still waiting to be heard?
Exactly. So why the rush? Why the rush? So for now, Speaker cannot also, it's about Speaker accepting and Speakers declaring the seat vacant. Okay, so or EC running into, why is EC, you ask, why is EC so quiet about it? What happened when he filed his nomination? What were the documents that he actually tendered in filing his nomination to represent the people?
It's interesting that you are raising those questions, but the fact is, we are not going into the details of the case currently before court. We are looking at the issues around the controversy which is on the table now. We are making an attempt to speak to Baba Jamal, who will help us to appreciate what all these legal gymnastics mean for the party, what is outstanding, and the expectation. Now, you would realize that if you look at Asen North, it's an interesting seat. Asen North as an interesting seat appears to be swinging. Apparently, I've looked at results since 2008. And if you look at presidential results since 1996, for example, the NPP has won at least 5 of the 7 different elections held at the presidential level. The NDC has won 2. The NDC won in 1996 and 2012 for the presidential. The NPP appears to have won many of the presidential results. Now, if I share on the screen what I have for the parliamentary seat, for example, you would see that it swings. In 2008, for example, the parliamentary seat went to the NPP, which won with about 55% of the votes, and you see that on the screen. In 2012, if you check the vote, Kennedy Japan at the time was the parliamentary candidate before it was split. Now, if you look at 2012, the NDC won 51%, 2016, the MPP won 56%, 2020, the NDC won 55%, and those are the results. So, obviously, it is not a safe seat. We don't anticipate that the EC may call the election now.
No.
But should it happen that the Supreme Court rules that the NDC cannot continue to represent the people there will be a by-election. Do you foresee that it is because of the swing nature of the seat that is making it more attractive to your opponent?
Yeah, I think it's because if it were to be a seat in the Volta region or elsewhere in the northern or central or western, elsewhere in the country, that like a safe seat for the NDC, the MPP wouldn't have been pushing so hard. It's because it's a swing, seat. And today I was just saying, he had 55%, more than 50% of the vote, which goes to tell you that the vast majority of the constituents actually bought into his message and the trust that they imposed in him and voted overwhelmingly for him. So it's like this because they think they can, take it from us. But this is not something that we are going to let go. That is our seat. It's the votes were given to NDC candidates. And they are using everything that they have, as government to take it from us. And we shall not sit aloof, we shall fight back. What happened in Ayasu West Wegon, it's not going to happen again. What happened in Ayasu West Wegon, and that let the government and its apparatus be warned. It shall not happen again. And let nobody call us. Get into Ayasu West Wegon when the Peace Council did their forum, they called us. I remember I myself and the youth organizer, Pablo, represented the party, and I spoke on behalf of the party. They all had their beautiful speeches written and speaking their big English. Honorable Kandapa was there. Kofi Boachi was there. They were all there. So I got up and I told the chairman, I said, look, if you really mean business and this is not just a talk shop, because we have some DPs who are actually funding this, go and talk to the president. Because he's the one who is going to perpetrate violence against us. So go and talk to him. We are not those in government. We don't have the security. We don't have the arms. And I told them that I can almost smell blood. And I also went, so Don't ask me for my scientific analysis because I didn't do one. I didn't do research. I only had to look at the leader, who is the president, the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, the chairman of the National Security Council, who he is, his demeanor, what he believes in, his words, his posture as a leader, or somebody that we think is leading us, will tell you that it was going to be violent. And precisely so, it became violent. And we withdrew. But we aren't going to withdraw anymore. We shall go to the end, and it shall be it's a do or die affair for us. Since it's a do or die affair for the government, we are not going to just hand over us and north to them. They can use all that they want to use, but we shall face them squarely, and we shall give back to them 20 times what they give to us. They should not think this time we are joking. Whatever they prepare towards us, we shall double it for them. And so if they think that they're going to do the Ayawaso West Rogon thing, or they're going to do any other thing, the 2020 elections that they use the military and the police, I mean, it doesn't really matter anymore to us. Because if you don't have peace, then nothing matters anymore. So if even we are quiet, you still beat us, you still oppress us, we shall fight back. Because if you're afraid to face you on the streets, you face us and then come after us.
Why is the narrative about you come with violence, we meet you with violence, rather than speaking to issues that may be on the ground? Because Ase North is a swing seat. Ase North is very deprived. I've been there several times. And therefore, the people on the ground will be looking at maybe some potential benefit.
No. Did you, if you had followed Ayawaso West Rogon, you would have realized the last minute developments that were going on, the gutter cleaning, and the sharing of monies. I sent
tiring of roads.
Yes, tiring of roads. And all of a sudden, Zoom Lion, garbage bins were all over. I mean, we know government to rush in with all those things. But even that, and I remember the last rally, the president came, Baumia, all of them came. I sent some of our people to go there. They got money. They gave them money. Okay? And so we know that all those things will come in. But they still resorted in violence, because they knew they were losing that seat. They would have lost Ayawaso West Rogon. I was a polling agent, and so I don't want to go into Ayawaso West Rogon. As at the time we withdrew, what was happening? Ase North, swing, but 2020 and any by-election will still go for the NDC, and they know it.
How strong are your activities on the ground, or have been on the ground, after the 2020 elections, for example? Because this case started from day one. We are on the ground. The only thing is that it's not everything that we can actually put out. We are working hand in hand with the constituency and the region. I mean, I'm talking about we national, but as a political party, we are on there, we are working, we are in touch with the people. The constituency executives and our branch executives are not sleeping. And but our last two FEC meetings, they were there to, give us an update. The only thing is that we can't sit on here and start telling them what our strategies are going to be, because they have not even come out to tell us what their strategies are going to be. For us, whether there's a pending case or not, we're taking it that there's going to be a by-election, and if it's a fly, we are going to use the bulldozer to slam that fly. That's all that we know. But there's another pending issue. If you listen to Godfrey Dame very well, who is the Attorney General,
yeah,
he's creating the impression that criminal proceedings could be applied against James Jechi Kwesen. If that should happen strategically or for political expedience, the NDC's narrative that your candidate will go unopposed and still represent the people and may win may have to be revised. Is that of concern to you?
Naturally, if they're going to create, formulate, invent, find some sort of criminal things against him, which I know that we all know that for this government, they can do anything just to get somebody behind bars. It does not mean that they are going to jail the NDC as a political party. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't have people to represent us, because in any case, the people of Ase North, they've come to understand that the MPP is just taking them for granted. The MPP is not about the constituency, it's about them, it's about government mischiefs and government machinations. And so it's not about their interests, it's about the government interest. So what they are looking at is they are looking at the NDC. And so if their whole thing is that because they think he had 55%, let's jail him and see if they can have a candidate. We know that they have gone down there to do their own checks within their political party, and they've actually, you know, kind of marked somebody down and said, okay, we think that this person can do for us. What we have in our pocket is what they don't know. We still hope that at least conscience will be applied this time round, and with everything staring at them, with the injustice that has been done to the people of Asen North, they will not go on to find something. You know, it's like going and you dive into the sea and you come out with a needle and say a needle that you drop in the sea, that's what you found in the ocean. Everybody will know that's a lie, but you bring the needle and everybody has to accept that you brought the needle out of the ocean because you actually dive in there to bring it out. If they don't do that, then our candidate will be clear to go. If they do, the NDC is a very huge political party with great men and women, especially even in Asen North. And the constituents who are in Asen North, they are with the party. They, in fact, they sympathize with what is going on with the Member of Parliament. And they are surely going to vote again and more for the NDC now in any by-election. The reason why I was talking about the violence, because with Nanado, you can never, the thing that you can usually anticipate is violence when it comes to elections. And he's actually shown it with his track record as the leader of our country. And so when a by-election comes and they realize that they'll still lose, they resort to violence.
Now, for those of us who analyze political party results, election results, for example, you'd realize that in 2016, the MPP's candidate was the same candidate who contested for the party in the 2020 elections. And so Abena Drowa Mensah, at the time in 2016, won massively with 56.77% with over 15,553 votes. The same candidate in 2020 lost to James Jechi Kwesen, who had 17,000 plus votes, which was representing about 55.21%. There is every suspicion that the NPP's game plan, assuming, because we are not conjecturing that the substantive case has been heard and therefore there is going to be a by-election. It is 50-50. I have read the rulings of the court and I've tried to appreciate the reasoning of the two justices of the Supreme Court who voted against, let's say, against. So this time it's 5-2. It's 5-2. Right?
It's not 7-0.
So it is possible that when the substantive case is heard, it can be 50-50, can go anyway. But assuming that we have to go for a by-election, the MPP may decide to drop Abena Drowa Mensah, who won in 2016 and may have lost in 2020 because of protest votes or poor performance or NDC's message. But if they bring her again, she has an added advantage against James Jechi Kwesen, who may go unopposed or may be withdrawn because the NDC may have to revise its note if criminal proceedings are preferred against him. Should that be a worry to you?
That if they maintain their candidate?
Whichever way, yes.
No, whichever way, it's we're going into an election, so you'll be looking at your opponent's candidate and what they have, you know, in their camp and what you can counter, definitely. But it's not something that is going to be the burden for us or a worry for us, because we know and we have a message. Remember that Honorable Jechi won the seat 55% from opposition. Okay, he got that vote from opposition, and so he had basically done nothing at the constituency. But from the time that he was elected or he was sworn in and he started to work, even though he's been going to court to and fro, he's been in touch with the people. The party is still in touch with the constituents, and not party faithful, but with the constituents across board. And so it's not something that either maintaining her or changing her, I mean, it's not something that would be of a major concern to us.
I want us to do something interesting. I want us to dash to the constituency and then speak to Martin Apah, is the Deputy Communication Officer of the NDC. I want to gauge the mood at Asen Central, Asen North, as we speak. Martin, good evening and thanks for your time on Ideas Exchange on TVXYZ.
My brother.
Yeah, Martin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Martin, how are your members receiving the story that there is no MP representing you, especially because the man your party voted for can no longer be called Asen North MP?
Very well. The people of Asen North are not shaking. Even though they voted for Honorable James Jechikwe, not because of the NPP people, the NDC people who voted for Honorable James Jechikwe. It is the NDC and the NPP. And they were saying that they want somebody who can help the community, to develop the community. So they voted for him massively in the 2020 election. The people who voted for Honorable Jechikwe is 17,498, represented by 55.21%. And the people who voted for Honorable Abreduwa Mensah is 14,193, represented by 79%. And the difference is 3,305. And when we go back to the 2012, Honorable Samuel Emre regime from 2012 to 2016, Abreduwa Mensah beat Honorable Samuel Emre in the name of the NDC. The margin is what? It's a 500. Now, the people of Asen North, both and NDC, NPP, they are not voted as a party. They are voted as the people or the person who can help the community to develop. This community was created by, Constituency was created by Honorable Ofosu Ampofo.
No, so I understand you perfectly. I don't want us to spend so much time going into the history of that constituency. What we know is that it's a swing state. As we speak, would you say that residents are angry or you are divided because there are MPP members there, there are NDC members there? If you can make it brief so that we come back to the studio.
Very well. The people of Asen North, they are angry in the sense there was no development going on in the Asen North, exception of Honorable Jechikwe. He came as an MP for Asen North, and he started development in the Asen North.
Okay, so let me ask my final question, William, if you will bear with me. Assuming that there is going to be a by-election, and then all of a sudden, overnight, you see so much development in your constituency, which we have seen in the past when by-elections are held. Do you think it will in any way convince people to change their minds?
Yeah, my mother. The point of correction, it is if it is not the by-election as like People's High Court say it is a re-election.
Okay.
And Honorable James Jejikwe, we can contest in the affair of the re-election. If today itself or in the night like this, if there was a re-election.
If there's going to be a by-election. Okay. So thank you very much. I have in the studio with me.
Honorable Jejikwe will win massively vote in the Asenov.
Thank you.
Even though the people of the Asenov and the MPP people are distressed to vote for Honorable Jejikwe.
All right, Martin Apa. Right, Martin, unfortunately, I will do it briefly with you, and that's how we have to end this conversation. Martin Apa is the Deputy Communications Officer for the NDC for the Asen North Constituency. So let's come back to the studio. We'll try to get one of your lawyers to explain to us what it means from the legal perspective. Now, we know there are so many cases your party is contesting, Techiman South, and the list will be out there that we will share. What is the status? And do you, for any reason, have cause for concern about whether they are being fast-tracked or delayed, or your wish that in this particular case, James Jejikwe's case, for example, you will see the courts demonstrating readiness to ensure that they are fast-tracked, rulings are given, so that your party, like government's party in parliament, will know the true position of what should represent the people of Ghana.
Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, we are contesting a number of seats, and the MPP also, of course, is contesting a number of seats. And so the interesting thing here is what's so special about Asena. So it's also election petition, isn't it? And it's been so fast-tracked. And so we wish the Techiman South and all the others.
I want to do this. It's not fair to you, but I believe that we have much time. But I have Abraham Amaliba on the line. Let me do this quickly with him. Within the next 5 minutes, I should wrap up with him. Good evening, and thanks for joining us on Ideas Exchange here on TVXYZ.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, our conversation with you will be very brief. After this ruling, what next? What does it mean for me as an ordinary Ghanaian who doesn't understand these legal gymnastics?
So effectively, they have denied us representation. This has to solve. So you now want to find out whether you have a democracy where a chunk of your people are not represented in parliament. Is that the kind of democracy you want to run? I thought that the idea would have been to say that, look, for a time they let him be in parliament, and then when we dispose of the substantive matter, then clearly you can now say that the people of Asen have no representation. But to then decide to injunct him while the substantive matter has not been decided, for me, is a sad day for our democracy. That, for me, is bad law.
I have seen the reasoning which is contained in the ruling by the Supreme Court. And the 5 justices who endorsed the plaintiff's request for James Jejikwe to stop carrying himself as a member of parliament make reference to previous cases where, for example, the Apex Court decided in the affirmative that an injunction can be placed, compared to the 2 who also made reference to the time James Jejikwe was going into the election, he was indeed a Ghanaian. What do you make of the reasoning and the counter one?
That has been my position. You know, I was in this case. I started the case at Cape Coast High Court 3. And I said that the PNDC law, the People Representation Act, says that the cutoff point, the time that you are supposed to qualify to contest as a member of parliament, is at the time of elections, which is 7th December, and not at the time of nominations, as the MPP are claiming. Look, Let's even leave law aside. Common sense. Do you think that it is proper for anybody to denounce the citizenship of another country only because it's coming to pick a form? Nomination means they are coming to take a form. Your mind can change. You can go to the EC, pick a form, get to the house, and your wife will tell you that, no. I don't like politics. Your children will call you and say they don't like politics. They've seen how their grandfather was treated in politics and then common regime. So, father, we don't want, and you change your mind. But you have already denounced your citizenship. So the premise of that law said that it should be at the time of election. Indeed, the Constitution says that you cannot be a member of parliament if you owe allegiance to another country. The question I asked the judge, the High Court judge, was even this. My Lord, at what point would they say that you are a judge of a High Court? I don't expect you to answer, but my Lord, is it when the president announces your name or when you are sworn in by the president? It is when you are sworn in. And so, at the time that the man was sworn in, you and me know that he had already renounced his citizenship.
Okay, so
indeed, by 7th December, he has denounced his Canadian citizenship. You know that. Okay, so we know that story, but I want to make this brief, and if you can make your response snappy. If this case drags, because we have had instances, so the 8th Parliament ends on the 6th of January 2024. If this case is not expeditiously handled, would you be suspicious? And what is the status of the other cases your party is pursuing? Make it snappy for us. They are all ongoing in the various courts at the High Court. They are all ongoing. There's the cross-examination of the regional director. They are all ongoing at various stages. At Jomoro, they are going to start a hearing in January, I think so. And so they are all ongoing. It's not like things have come to a standstill. In CPU also, hearing has begun. So they are all ongoing. Tema West, I think the court has given orders for them to inspect the biometric verification machine. So they are all ongoing. They are all at the
okay, all right. So Abraham Amaliba, I believe that TVXYZ will have an extensive conversation with you, because in the studio with us, we have the National Women's Organizer of the NDC, Dr. Louisa Hannah Bisiw, who is also, I know, has a big position. She's the, is it the chair of the ECOWAS, the president of the ECOWAS, what?
Forum of Political Parties.
ECOWAS Forum of Political Parties. So Abraham Amaliba, we thank you very much for your time on TVXYZ with us. I'm sure it's left. So, going forward, what is going to be the party's position dealing with some members who may be demoralized as far as developments are concerned?
Naturally, we're not going to have 100% of our members, not, feeling down and all that. But it's just a few of them, and we think it's momentarily it will go away, because we are poised to maintain our seat, as we heard from the lawyer. It's not done yet, but we're not going to sleep thinking that, okay, we play the devil's advocate. That's what I said. So we prepare and wait. We lose nothing preparing ourselves, for a by-election. At the same time, there's not going to be a by-election tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, because the substantive case has still not been heard. It looks like somebody's in a hurry to just declare or embarrass the member of parliament, or, in a hurry to deny the good people of Asen North their right to representation, which is also against the Constitution. And so when that lawyer was saying something against the Constitution, so I was like, okay, we're in this country, and the people of South, they don't have representation. And then,
yes, I see this, but at what stage? I will share with those watching TVXYZ what will inform my next question. But at what stage would you feel like the cases are unnecessarily dragging? Because now with 136, 137, it may be comfortable enough, even plus one vote, for a ruling party which has been fighting the minority or the minority side because of 137 137 with, let's say, Adwa Safo, who has been out, and now 136, 137. Now, the reason why I am asking this question is because of what has happened before. It's on record that parliamentary election disputes have dragged till the end of a certain term of parliament. But just recently, and I'm making reference to July 2020, our Supreme Court today had an issue involving Domelivo. Some civil society organizations had gone to court to seek interpretation. And this is what Professor Kweku Asare shared as a concern. And I'll read, and I believe that when it's shared on the screen, you read along with me. It says, it appears problematic for our Supreme Court to shy away from the issue and embark on a 2-month vacation. As you mentioned, I issued a writ on July 10 claiming that the President has violated Article 1877 by attempting to direct and control the Auditor General, that the Deputy Auditor General has violated Article 187(16) by performing the functions of the Auditor General without first subscribing to the oath of that Auditor General, relying on, and we are also of the view that the AG should have not even handed over matters relating to his office to the Deputy Attorney General, and so the Attorney General has presented his side of the story, alleging that the President has powers to do so under Article 297. Now, the court must decide, deem this important enough and of national interest. This court must do the same thing, come out of its vacation to address this issue with all the arguments that have been made. The court cannot, when the whole country is talking about this matter, just rest comfortably in a vacation mood and allow the constitutional cancer to fester. So I'm humbly using your platform, pleading with His Lordship Justice Enim Yabua to direct the court panel hearing on our case to consider the briefs before them and give us decision within 10 days. Now, this is instructive because the substantive case is yet to be heard. The EC cannot declare this seat vacant, even if the NPP or the NDC is optimistic of winning it. How long should it take for your party to flag the proceedings? Because we know that the wheels of justice, they say, grind slowly.
I think that because Asen North has, special, or government has special interest in Asen North, and they've, I call it the acrobatics of, judiciary systems, where they've decided to put probably the cart before the horse. And so we have to wait for the horse to now move and take its position for the cart to move. We are hoping that they will also hear the substantive case and fast track it, which we hope very much that after the hearing on the substantive case, there won't be the need for anybody to say that the Honourable Member of Parliament for Asen North cannot hold himself anymore.
Do you have confidence? Because prior to Kandapa's comment, which triggered a lot of public discourse, the NDC had stated its position. Today, I've seen some Facebook posts suggesting that Kandapa's comment may have ended up in the 5-2 we have seen. From what has happened today and looking beyond, are you confident of things going, or the narratives going differently than your suspicions in the past?
I think for Kandapa to have come out, to say what he said, it's informed by the happenings in our judiciary system. And so we are still very skeptical, but we are still hoping that we still have men in our courts who have conscience. We still have men in our courts who actually feel like Ghanaians and also have families and they love this country, because the only thing that keeps us together is the upholding of our laws, of our constitution. Ghanaians are required to defend the Constitution of Ghana. And I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't take one to go to a law school to know that justice has been denied. It does not take one to go to a law school to know that the Constitution has been set aside for some sort of judgments to be passed. And so we still are hoping that we still do have men who are in our courts who still have some level of conscience and sensitivity towards the plight of Ghanaians and the state to actually do the right thing by, giving the people of this country justice. Because when you deny us justice, that is when what Kandapa fears come in. That is when we now take the law into our own hands. Because if we can't get justice from the courts, if we lose trust in our courts, it's very, very dangerous for national security. And nobody can deny that.
We have barely 3 minutes left. But let me ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Your members of parliament walked out when the e-levy was supposed to be considered. They have gone to the Supreme Court since asking for interpretation. Government has given it a nod with the assent by the president. The finance minister says implementation takes effect in barely 2 weeks. The Supreme Court, which is supposed to quickly set a date for hearing of this case, has not, as far as I am concerned, made any pronouncement as far as the hearing date is concerned. Is it an issue of worry to you?
It's an issue of worry. I mean, I think that it's only the hypocrite in this country who will not see or have problems with the way, the justice or the judiciary is operating these days under Nanado, who a so-called human rights lawyer, whoever he thought himself to be. But for us, we are still hoping that per what Kandapa won, the judges will now sit up and use their own brains, sit down and make judgment, give us what we need. You see this e-levy, all the gymnastics that went through. Now it's gone to court. It's like when you say this, they'll tell you, I think that our president and this government is a lawless one. And
are you not being too harsh?
I'm not being harsh. I'm only describing what is pertaining in our country. It's a lawless government. That is why they set aside the laws and they make their own judgments, they make their own rules. Before judgment will come out of Supreme or High Court, government will either preempt or say something, and need to go as it is. And so he has packed the courts more than any other president in our history. Our president does not believe in the laws of this country. He doesn't believe in the human rights of Ghanaians. He does not believe in the constitution of our country. And right now that we know that our constitution is being thrown to the gutters, as a citizen, it will get to a point where we'll rise up to defend the constitution. We were in this country when Kennedy Japan insulted the judges. We're in this country, what didn't Okujato say about judges? Where we were here when the vigilantes went to court and chased a lady judge, pregnant judge, out of court, and her wig was left behind. We're in this country. What happened? And so when you have selective justice for some group of people, then the people will rise up and defend themselves. And you see, it's constitutional. It's in our constitution. Okay, it's not a right. It's a right. It's not a privilege for anybody. And we are supposed to defend us. This is what makes us a people. This is what we are supposed to be guided by. But immediately you throw the law away, you bring chaos. And so for those who are quiet in this country, for those who are pretending not to see or hear or feel or smell or palpate, we are telling them that we have been oppressed enough. We are not getting justice when justice is supposed to be. Our parliamentarians are being frustrated. Every parliamentarian represents a group of people. And as these things go on and on, it will get to a point, as they say in Chi,
so you are virtually landing on the same caution by Kandapa, who is our national security minister.
Well, he's with them, he's cautioned, and now I'm saying as a citizen who is feeling
for those of you who have followed XYZ broadcasting, you would have remembered that since last month, we initiated a campaign, what we dubbed Easter Tre Wodo, Friday, we are visiting an orphanage to make the donation. All of you who have been supportive. In fact, the response has been very massive. I'll use this platform on behalf of management of XYZ Broadcasting to say thank you so much for that support. Tomorrow is the last day. I believe that those of you who want to send cash, you can send them to our Momo number, which I'll be sharing on the screen. But we would also want to say a special thank you to Lagera, Itri, and East Legon Hills. That's at East Legon Hills for offering to feed the children who will be visiting on Friday. And of course, the Countryside Children's Welfare Home, who have also been very, very collaborative. My guest in the studio has been Dr. Louisa Hannah Bisiw, who is the NDC's National Women's Organizer. She's also the president of the ECOWAS Forum of Political Parties. Doc, I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you for having me here, and we pray that Ghana, finds its path, that we go back to, where we could sleep peacefully without thinking, about what will happen tomorrow. And we're asking and saying that we don't want peace, we want justice. Without justice, to hell with peace. And we are saying to the president that enough is enough. We are tired. Okay. We shall respond.
All right. So on that note, we wrap up the conversation on NDC's initial response to development in Asen North. My name is Erica Hianyo. Let's do this again next week. And don't forget that we are also proud of all those who have been behind this program by way of sponsorship. And of course, all the producers and the technical persons who have brought this to your home. Let's meet again next week.